Welcome to Annie Tales. Today I'm going to narrate you a book called Tender is the Flesh. So let's start chapter 2. The road to the Teneri always seems long to him. It's a dirt road that runs straight past kilometers and kilometers of empty fields. Once there were cows, sheep, horses. Now there isn't anything for as far as the eye can see. His phone rings. He pulls over and answers the call. It's his mother in law. And he tells her he can't talk because he's on the road. She speaks in a low voice, in a whisper. She tells him that Cecilia is doing better, but that she needs more time. She is not ready to move back yet. He doesn't say anything and she hangs up. The Teneri oppresses him. It's the smell of wastewater, full of hair, earth, oil, blood, refuse, fat, and chemicals. And it's Senor Urami. The desolate landscape forces him to remember, to question, yet again, why he is still in this line of work. He was only at the Cypress for a year after he'd finished secondary school. Then he decided to study veterinary science. His father had approved and been happy about it. But not long after, the animal virus became an epidemic. He moved back home because his father had lost his mind. The doctors diagnosed him with senile dementia, but he knows his father couldn't handle the transition. Many people suffered an acute depression and gave up on life. Others dissociated themselves from reality. Some simply committed suicide. He sees the sign, Hifu Teneri 3 kilometers. Senor Urami, the tannery's Japanese owner, despises the world in general and loves skin in particular. As he drives along the deserted road, he slowly shakes his head because he doesn't want to remember. But he does remember. His father talking about the bugs that washed over him at night. His father accusing the neighbors of being hit men. His father dancing with the dead wife. His father lost in the fields in his underwear. Singing the national anthem to a tree. His father in a nursing home. The processing plant sold to pay off the debt and keep the house. His father's absent gaze to this day when he visits. He enters the tannery and feels something strike him in the chest. It's the smell of the chemicals that halt the process of skin decomposition. It's a smell that chokes him. The employees work in complete silence. At first glance, It seems almost transcendental, a zen like silence. But it's Senor Urami who's observing them from up in his office. Not only does he watch the employees and monitor work, he has cameras all over the tannery. He goes up to Senor Urami's office. There's never a wait. Invariably, two Japanese secretaries greet him and serve him red tea in a transparent mug, not bothering to ask if he'd like any. He thinks that Senor Urami doesn't look at people, but instead measures them. The owner of the tannery is always smiling, and he feels that when this man observes him, what he's really doing is calculating how many meters of skin he can remove in one piece if he slaughters him, flays him, and removes his flesh on the spot. The office is simple, sleek, but on the wall hangs a cheap reproduction of Michelangelo's The Last Judgment. He's seen the print many times, but it's only today that he notices the person holding flayed skin. Senor Urami observes him, sees the disconcerted look on his face, and guessing his thoughts, says that the man is Saint Bartholomew, a martyr who was flayed to death. That it's a colorful detail, doesn't he think? He nods, but doesn't say a word because he thinks it's an unnecessary detail. Senor Urami talks, recites as though he were revealing a series of indisputable truths to a large audience. His lips glisten with saliva. They are the lips of a fish or a toad. There's a dampness to him, a zigzag to his movements. There's something eel-like about Senor Urami. All he can do is look at the owner of the tannery in silence, because essentially it's the same speech every time. He thinks that Senor Urami needs to reaffirm reality through words, as though words created and maintain the world in which he lives. Silently, he imagines the walls of the office slowly beginning to disappear, the floor dissolving, and the Japanese secretaries vanishing into the air, evaporating. All of this he sees because it's what he wants. But it will never happen because Senor Urami is talking about numbers, about the new chemicals and dyes being tested at the tannery, and telling him, as though he didn't already know it, how difficult it is now with this product, that he misses working with cow skin. Although he clarifies, Human skin is the smoothest in nature because it has the finest grain. He picks up the phone and says something in Japanese. One of the secretaries comes in with a huge folder. Senor Urami opens it and displays samples of different types of skins. He touches them as though they were ceremonial objects, explaining how to avoid defects when the lot is wounded in transit, which happens because human skin is more delicate. This is the first time Senor Urami has shown him the folder. He looks at the samples of skins that have been placed in front of him, but doesn't touch them. Senor Urami points his finger at a very white sample with marks on it. He says it's one of the most valuable skins, though a large percentage of it had to be discarded because there were deep wounds. He repeats that he is only able to conceal superficial wounds. Senor Urami says that this folder was put together especially for him, so he could show it to the people at the processing plant and breeding center, and it would be clear which skins they have to be most careful with. Senor Urami stands up, gets a printout from a drawer, hands it to him, and says that he's already sent off the new designs for the cuts of skin. They still have to be perfected though, because of the importance of the cut at the moment of flaying. Since a poorly made cut means meters of leather wasted, and the cut needs to be symmetrical. Senor Urami picks up the phone again. A secretary comes in with a transparent teapot. He gestures the secretary and she serves more tea. Senor Urami continues to talk to him with words that are measured harmonious. He picks up the mug, takes a sip, though he doesn't want any. Senor Urami's words construct a small, controlled world that's full of cracks. A world that could fracture with one inappropriate word. He talks about the essential importance of the flaying machine. How, if it's not calibrated correctly, it can rip the skin. Of how the fresh skin he sent from the processing plant requires further refrigeration so that subsequent flesh removal is not as cumbersome. Of the need for the lots to be well hydrated so the skin doesn't dry out and crack. Of having to talk to the people at the breeding center about the importance of following the liquid diet, of how stunning needs to be carried out with precision, because if the product is slaughtered carelessly, it will show on the skin. which gets tough and is more difficult to work with because, he points out, everything is reflected in the skin. It's the largest organ of the body. His smile never fading, Senor Urami exaggerates the pronunciation of this sentence in Spanish and with it ends his speech, following it with a measured silence. He knows he doesn't have to say anything to this man, just agree. But there are words that strike at his brain, accumulate, cause damage. He wishes he could say atrocity, inclemency, excess, sadism to Senor Urami. He wishes these words could rip open the man's smile, perforate the regulated silence, compress the air until it chokes both of them. But he remains silent and smiles. Senor Urami never accompanies him out, but this time they walk downstairs together. Before he leaves, Senor Urami stops him next to a tank of whitewash to monitor an employee handling skins that are still covered in hair. They must be from a breeding center, he thinks, because the skins from the processing plant are completely hairless. Senor Urami makes a gesture. The manager appears and proceeds to yell at a worker who is removing the flesh from a flesh skin. It seems he is doing a poor job. To justify the employee's apparent inefficiency, the manager tries to explain to Senor Urami that the fleshing machine's roller is broken and they are not used to manual flesh removal. Senor Urami interrupts him with another gesture. The manager bows and leaves. Then they walk to the tanning drum. Senor Urami stops and tells him he wants black skins. Out of nowhere, with no explanation. He lies and says that a lot of will be arriving shortly. Senor Urami nods and says goodbye. Whenever he leaves the building, he needs a cigarette. Inevitably, an employee comes over to tell him horrific things about Senor Urami. Rumor has it he assassinated and flayed people before the transition. That the walls of his house are covered in human skin. That he keeps people in his basement. And that it gives him great pleasure to flay them alive. He doesn't understand why the employees tell him these things. All of it's possible, he thinks. But the only things he knows for certain is that Senor Urami runs his business with a reign of terror and that it works. He leaves the tannery and feels relief. But then he questions, yet again, why he exposes himself to this. The answer is always the same. He knows why he does this work. Because he's the best and they pay him accordingly. Because he doesn't know how to do anything else. And because his father's health depends on it. There are times when one has to bear the weight of the world.